All right, Jabronis, we're back. Welcome back to another episode of Libretti Podcast Diary Show. I'm your host, Libretti. Thank you guys for being here. We're going to be talking about Super Smoke Show, Olivia Dunne. Livy Dunne, she's a gymnast at LSU. That's over in the Junction. We'll get into that. But first, make sure you do the likes and subscribes and the notifications and all the how you doings. And call in that hotline so we have more content for later on so we can get to your questions and advice and what have you. It's 202-670-1114. I feel like I'm one of those radio show disc jockeys. Don't forget to hit the hotline, folks. I'm an a-hole. All right. Hope everybody had a good week. It was Veterans Day this past weekend. Veterans Day weekend. It was celebrated on Friday this year. I hope you guys, if you are veterans, went out and enjoyed your free meal at Golden Corral. For those of you who are not veterans, I hope you were able to find a veteran friend to go enjoy a free meal at Golden Corral. And remember, the sacrifices that some people made for this country. They call it for freedom. They fight for your freedom. We fight for your freedom, whatever. No one has really contested this nation physically on location in quite some time. So I guess you're welcome for me going down to Virginia Beach and fighting in the trenches of warfare for, little to no impact. So you're welcome for that. Give me my free Golden Corral. All right. What else we got going on this week? Midterm elections. I wish I can remember the episode number where I started talking about this. It was probably 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, where we pretty much predicted this clown show was going to happen almost to the T. This is how it is every 2 years, okay? What happens is there is an election, a couple of corrupt clowns get voted in, and then they tell you everything's going to be okay now. Everything's going to be great, grand, and wonderful because you voted for me, even though I've been in power or my team has been in power since you were born. Now we're going to do and make the changes that we promised because we won. Then a year and a half is going to go by, and a bunch of not real problems, not real issues are going to become real issues coincidentally right around that time, and they're going to say, hey, if you don't vote for me, this country is going in the dumps. So you better vote for me, and then, only then will I be able to fix your problem. And then you vote for them, and they win, and say, okay, now everything's going to be copacetic again because you voted for me and we're still in power. We won, even though we've stayed in power since before you were born. Only now will we be able to do what we said we were going to do because you voted for me and we won. And this is what the speechwriters are telling me to say. And it's going to go on and on and on every 2 years until enough of us get our heads out of the sands, out of the you-know-whats, and actually do something about it. Vote somebody different. Okay? Everybody keeps complaining about, why would I vote for this other guy? They're not qualified. They don't have the experience that this D-bag who's been in power for decades has. Maybe we should just try the inexperienced person over the D-bag who's been in power, doing insider trading, making corrupt deals, and keeping this country, again, on a steady track downward into the Bermuda Triangle for God knows how long now. Maybe we should do something different finally. Nothing changed after this midterm election. It was exactly how we predicted it. The same people will be in power for the most part. There was a couple of changes. Every 2 years, there's always a couple of changes they try to make to be a big deal, but it's not really changes. It's just a different name under the same corrupt umbrella. That's all it is for the most part. Now, it's not everybody. I'm making a generalization here, obviously, but for the most part, that's how it is. There's a couple minor changes in different unimportant regions and districts of the country, and then everything else pretty much stays the same. Blue votes blue, red votes red. Nothing, that's it. And we talk up a big game on Instagrams and social media as to how we voted. We're covering ourselves in stickers so we can maintain the moral high ground over everybody else who didn't get a sticker. that we voted, so we're better than you, we're smarter than you because we voted. Meanwhile, we're all voting for the same thing as before, and then we're sitting here complaining about why everything's getting worse and nothing's changing because we had the same people, running the train off the cliff, off the bridge. So that's what you get this midterm election. That's what we're going to get in 2 years from now for the presidential election and the other senators and congressmen that are up for re-election in 2 years. We're going to get the same thing. The media is going to make a big deal out of it, like our lives depend on it, and then nothing's going to change, and we're going to be sitting here with our thumbs up or you-know-whats, crying about it, wondering when things are going to change, even though we're supposedly in control of that. So there you go. By the way, not to keep talking about the negative here, but everybody's dogging on Florida. All right, all the mainstream media loves ripping on Florida. They're a bunch of white trash hicks. Don't want to live down there. They didn't wear their quadruple mask during COVID. They're idiots. They're stupid. Blah blah blah. Meanwhile, Florida had no problem with the majority of their tabulators working for the voting, and they seem to have no problem counting the millions of votes for all the little races going on in their state. Meanwhile, these states that are, again, dogging on Florida for being useless, white trash, weirdo, RV owning hicks, they're having, it's been a week now almost a full week. By the time you listen to this, it'll be over a week of them trying to count votes. Only a couple thousands of votes. And they're having trouble counting votes. It's 2022, folks. Okay? We had this problem in the same states 2 years ago. And in the 2 years time frame, the people that said that they could fix the problem didn't even look at the problem. Okay? These same states are having trouble counting votes in 2022 in America, supposedly the greatest country in the world, the most advanced country going, can't figure out the computer program to count votes, and they hire a bunch of nincompoops off the street to hand count votes, and it's taken them over a week to hand count votes. Oh, we have thousands of votes to count. The white trash, unvaxxed idiots over in Florida seem to count millions, no problem. So I don't know what the problem there is in these other states. Can't count a couple thousand votes. It's 2022, guys. This shouldn't be a problem anymore. Okay? If the people in charge of your state can't count votes, maybe you should vote for other people to take charge of your state. I don't know. I'm not a smart guy. Okay? I'm a man without a state. I live in my parents' basement. I'm an idiot. But it seems to me, if the people in charge are telling me they don't know how to count in 2022, they can't figure out how to count appropriately and in a timely fashion, I might want to think about figuring out new leadership to run my state. Because if they can't count, I'm sure there's probably other more important things they can't do either. So that's the midterm elections, folks. That's 2022 political elections in America. Same idiots can get in power, and nobody can count. And everybody's sitting there twiddling their thumbs wondering why. That's just great. I'm glad we started off this episode hot. Now, let's just get into the good stuff here, because there's lessons to be learned in the Junction. Okay, it's not just going to be me venting about, perennial stupidity, because you're going to hear it again in 2 years anyway, so I'll give it to you more then, so to speak. All right, let's just move on, and we'll step into the cage.
Okay, let's run.
All right, today's Into the Cage segment is proudly sponsored by War Bonds. Do you want to contribute to our nation's freedom? but are too much of a beta bitch boy to actually join the military and fight? Well, then buy some war bonds and don't be a complete panty waste anymore. See, by buying war bonds, you'll help fund the next war we have no business even starting to begin with, and you could say you actually earn that free Veterans Day meal at Applebee's each year. So, to contribute now, visit www.realhero.com and use the promo code SUCKER to get 2.9% off your first bond purchase. War bonds. If you don't buy them, we'll just take it out of your taxes anyway. That sponsor sucked. War bonds sucked. It was just a scam to get more money out of people. And now they don't even have to do that anymore because they just up our taxes. And if you can't tell that I'm not hot enough about the state of our nation and such, war bonds. All right. Cage fact. Got a little update. It seems to be confirmed now that Nic Cage will appear in season 2 of National Treasure TV show that they have on. It's going to be on Disney+. Season 1 starts soon. I think it airs at the end of November, beginning of December 2022. So he'll be in season 2, and there's still no information on if they're going to do a third movie with him or not. This could be priming the pump, getting a storyline built up in the show to set up like a third movie potentially. I didn't read that anywhere. I just made that up right now. That's just my own personal thoughts and what I kind of want to happen because I don't have Disney+. I don't feel like paying for Disney+. I think the National Treasure show without him is going to be garbage. So I don't really want to pay to wait a year to see Nic Cage. So I'm hoping they make a movie, and then I can just watch Disney+ at my sister's house to catch up on season 2, and then I can go right into the movie. But that's just what I want to do. That's a bias. That's what we do here. We're identifying the biases here. That's not an objective opinion. It's just what I want to happen. Okay? And I'm man enough to admit that because, I'm trying to be man enough to admit it. Because that's what we do here. All right. That's the Cage fact. Quick and easy. No nonsense. We'll move right over into the Junction and spin the logo up. I want to give a quick shout out to my man Lebron James, an all-time fraud, an all-time liar, does it again. Okay, if you hadn't seen this last week, and this is current events, I understand that, but there's lessons here, so don't worry. There's timeless lessons that we take out of current event situations. So you can listen to this anytime you want. The current event might not make sense to you, but the lessons will, so hear me out here. LeBron James gets caught in another lie. He's talking about the rapper Takeoff, who just died. He was shot to death. And he's talking about how, he was a big fan of Takeoff in their rap group, the Migos, or whatever they're called. I don't know. I never heard of them before because I'm a loser. But he said I've been a fan of the Migos forever. I listened to them since 2010 when I was on the Heat. And you can ask all my teammates. I used to tell them, hey, these guys, these are the new, these are the up-and-coming new hotness. Be ready for the Migos back in 2010. Meanwhile, the Migos didn't even start until 2011, 2012. In fact, they probably weren't really known until 2012. I think their first album came out in 2011. And I only know this because there's an entire group of LeBron haters that put this stuff out regularly. They kind of look for the lie. Everything the guy says has some sort of lie in it. And they found that for me because, like I said, I didn't even hear the Migos. If he told me that, I would have believed him and been like, hey, thanks, LeBron, for that information. I appreciate, you telling me that you were, first on the scene there. But it turns out he's a liar and a fraud. And it goes back to several other times where he's been pulling this stunt as an adult in the NBA, a big-time superstar, lying to be the it guy for whatever reason. And that's what it's really come down to. He's not lying like I did not sleep with that woman, like some other people have done in the past, where they lie to get out of crimes and bad things. He's just lying to be the it guy, to be that cool guy that everybody wants to, LeBron is always first on the case. He's always knows people before they're super famous. He's the one who brings them out and about. He's the one who's always reading all these books while he's working out and just being a different, better guy. And he's the one who watches all these, cult classic movies because he's different and better than everybody else and this and that, and he's the guy. However, it's a sham. It's all a big facade. It's a big LeBron clout Ponzi scheme because he's been caught time after time after time in these little white lies, these fibs, just to try to look cool, and he's been exposed as a giant fraud time and time again. Not to mention the fact that he big leagued The Undertaker and his family, who went to go see him play one year, and LeBron lost, and he was crying like a little beta bitch boy, and he knew The Undertaker was coming, and he sat in the locker room and cried, and didn't come out and say hello to The Undertaker, who was there for him, and brought his family for him, and they were supposed to do a thing together, and he big leagued The Undertaker. Now, plus he's a liar. Okay, you don't do that to The Undertaker and then lie as well. That's just a real problem. The lesson here is, it's really more of like a question. Why is he doing this? And I can't answer that. Only he can answer that. It seems like he's in that phase. Remember when you're a kid and you make up crap to sound cooler than you really are, or to try to one-up your friend? Like someone said, oh yeah, I want and watch Sandlot. Oh yeah, me too. I watched Sandlot too. Oh, who's your favorite? Oh, Benny the Jet. Oh, tell me about Benny the Jet. And then you just kind of fumble. Well, I don't really know. I only watched the movie once. I couldn't tell you. It was, a couple weeks ago, blah, blah, blah. But you want to be the cool guy because as a kid, everybody wants to be around the it kid. The kid who knows all, who gets to go watch the movies first time they're out in the theaters, gets all the new video games first, gets all the hot new music and clothes, and has all the information about things. Everybody wants to be around that it guy, and if you can be that it guy or gal, you're going to try to do it, even if it means lying. I used to do it all the time as a kid. All the time. To try to sound cool. Because I would follow the cool kids around, without them knowing, because I was a loser, so I would hang in the back and follow around. And if I heard them saying something, oh yeah, I did this, or I hate this, then I would also do that or hate that, because maybe I could get some clout and be less of a loser or whatever, and that's what you do. LeBron seems to be doing that as an adult still. We grow out of that. LeBron has not grown out of that, and I don't know what it is. It's got to be tough, and I guess here's where the lesson is here. We could dog on him for being a liar and a phony and a fraud and not understanding why all we want. But if we take the step back and think about LeBron's existence, he's been in the limelight since he was 16 years old, and he's been a megastar since he was 18 years old. Okay? It's the same sort of thing what you get with child celebrities on the acting side and this and that, and musicians and what have yous. You don't know how to deal with that. Okay? If I was 18 years old and I was the most popular athlete in my sport in the entire world, I don't know how I would mature and grow and adapt to that ever. So maybe that's what happened. Maybe he has not figured out how to adapt to that, or his idea of adapting to it is what we, current LeBron now. So we could dog on him and trash him and call him a fraud and a phony all we want, but we really don't know exactly what's going on in his head and why he's doing that. So we got to cut him a little slack. We could joke around about it and share a few laughs about anytime he see him with a picture of him reading a book and he's only 5 pages into the book. You can argue if you want. You can laugh about it. You can argue that he's a phony and he needs to be stopped for this. Or why doesn't he just actually be the person he's claiming to be instead of being the fake version and actually read the books and watch the movies and listen to the music? Or we can just sit back and understand that we don't understand what he's got going on. This could just be a defense mechanism that he's built up since childhood to deal with the limelight always being on him. And we could give him the benefit of the doubt. What is unforgivable about LeBron James is Big League and The Undertaker. That's unforgivable. He needs to, and he hasn't apologized. It's been years. I don't think he will ever. And that's my problem with LeBron James. I think he's a phenomenal basketball player. I think he's got a lot of things going on in his own personal life that we don't know or understand that are affecting how he projects out publicly. So I don't want to judge him on that. However, shame on LeBron James for how he treated The Undertaker. That guy is an absolute national treasure. He's been in the wrestling limelight, giving the people what they want for decades. You don't big league The Undertaker for any reason because you lost. You lost a game. Your team sucks right now, LeBron. Okay? Your team is garbage. You're going to lose a lot more games, pal. Okay? You're still going to be the best player in the league. Don't worry about it. You can take the time to walk out of the locker room knowing you had a scheduled meeting with The Undertaker and his family, and you meet with The Undertaker and his family. The other stuff, got it. Cut him some slack. If you're going to dog on him for how he wronged The Undertaker. All right, I think that's all I got on LeBron. Moving on to Super Smoke Show, Olivia Dunne. Now, if you don't know Olivia Dunne and what's going on with her recently, she's a gymnast in LSU. And the New York Times just put out an article on her. They told her that it was going to be just an interview to learn about her and how she's utilizing the college's new NIL thing that you can use, the name and likeness, where it's the opportunity for college athletes to actually make money, and the money doesn't go all to the school and the donors and what have yous. The student athletes can actually earn money for having their name and likeness out there and about in the world, as opposed to the sort of child labor that they were dealing with beforehand. So they told her it was going to be for that. They interviewed her, and then they published this hit piece on her, just dragging her through the mud for not being a great gymnast to begin with, and she's just taking advantage of this NIL stuff because she's hot. And she's popular on Instagram, and she's making $2 million in NIL profits from this. And shame on her. And what a piece of garbage she is for doing this. And we can't have this. She's a poor example of female athletes in college in America. And they just drag her through the mud for that. They even had a women's b-ball coach provide information. I guess they interviewed her too, and this lady said, I don't remember the name of the lady, I don't even remember the name of the team that she coaches. That's how unimportant this lady was. And she mentioned that, this is a step back in women's sports. Olivia Dunne has pushed the women's sports movement in America a step backwards because of what she's doing here, doing with the NIL stuff. Now, a lot of people are giving the New York Times and that coach a lot of shit for this, okay? They're giving them a lot of shit, like, how can you lie to this girl and tell her it's going to be an interview for one thing, and then do a baseless hit piece on her and drag her through the mud afterwards without her knowing, after you sucked her dry of information, not caring how that affects her afterwards at all. And then they're dragging her, initially the people, for taking advantage of this. Excuse me, not the people, New York Times. I don't know what I'm saying. New York Times is dragging her for taking advantage of this NIL opportunity. And people are dogging on, NY Times are dogging on that coach, saying, hey, you guys are pieces of garbage for doing this. Coach, you're a piece of garbage for talking shit on her. This is what you've been lobbying for years, to give these college athletes, these student athletes, a an opportunity to make money off of their hard work like you guys have been making for God knows how long now. And now that it's here, you're dragging this poor girl for doing that. And then in New York Times, you're supposed to be a reputable news organization. And this is what you're doing to young adults. You're lying to them and then doing hit pieces on them. I say, let's take the step back. Okay? I'm kind of with the New York Times and this bitter old bag of a basketball coach for their, what I consider to be valid, points and ways forward on this. Okay? Because isn't this what you want out of a newspaper? The New York Times was founded in 1851 to provide people with quality news, especially back in the day when this was the only way they were going to get news, via paper. You find out what's going on in the country, in the region, you type it up, you pop it on some weird paper substance where the ink always gets on your hands, and they still haven't figured out a new way to print up newspapers yet, and then they go and deliver it out to people so they can get their news and updates. So this is, why wouldn't you want this? This is a thing that's happening in the world. Somebody's taking advantage of a system, and the New York Times is just trying to get to the bottom of it. That's what news is. These journalists are just trying to get to the bottom of it. Why would we not want to hear about someone taking advantage of an otherwise ethical system and process that's been put in place? And that's how we get our information, okay? And yeah, maybe they lied. Maybe they told a little white lie to this person to get the information we wanted. And I say we because we all wanted to read about this. This is what we wanted, and they're the ones who had to do the dirty work to get it. So yeah, they lied to her. 19, 20, 21-year-old kid. That's what you do to kids. You lie to them. And you get the information you need. They'll be fine. They're resilient. Kids' brains aren't even fully developed until they're like 25 anyway. And I said that a billion times on this podcast before. So we know that they're gonna figure out a way out of it. She'll figure herself out. But sometimes you got to lie to these quote-unquote victims to get the information you want to report appropriately. And that's all the New York Times was doing. They were reporting appropriately. Okay? That's what we do in the military and the government to get intel. And that intel saves lives. Okay? You're going to tell us to stop saving lives? You're going to tell the New York Times to stop saving lives? No, I don't think so. Okay, that's how they have to do it. It's a tough job, but somebody's going to do it, and they're the ones who are doing it for us. Okay? And then you have this coach as just corroborating intel, okay? You gather information, and then you get somebody to vet that information. And this bitter old, crusty, leather-faced looking pile of mashed up mango pulp is that corroborating evidence. Okay, she's been around as a coach in the NCAA women's basketball for God knows how long. It looks like a century. So that's the person you want to go to get that corroborating information, that has extra details, to get a lay of the land of how other people feel about this monster taking advantage of a system that was put in place by by the coaches and the organization, NCAA. That's how it's done. Okay? That's what we talk about on this show time and time again, is you gather information from all sides as much as you can before you form opinions on things, before you report things and make assessments on things. And that's all the New York Times has been doing. They've been following the LPDS checklist of critical analysis and assessment making. So I don't know why people are giving them crap for that. That's how it works, okay? You can say this old, bitter, ball-sack-looking coach who's been unimportant for decades is just jealous and pissed off that the system that she helped to put in place is now being taken advantage of, or somebody else is taking advantage of it and succeeding off of it, and she's not. You could call her a bitter old, crusty, disgusting, unpopular hag because nobody watches her team anyway. You could do that. Or you could take the step back and realize she has a valid point. Okay? You can't just have people utilizing a system or a process legally and by the book and succeeding that much without something being fishy. And that's all she's saying. There's no way that this animal, Olivia Dunne, can just go ahead and utilize the NIL process for profit for no reason. With no consequences, just utilizing the process put in place by the book. Can't just do that, okay? And this is what this coach is saying. This completely unpopular, no name of a coach is saying. And the New York Times is just reporting it. Don't kill the messenger. So I don't understand why people are giving the New York Times shit and this old battle-axe great-grandma of a coach who has nothing else better to do than coach a shitty team that nobody even knows about and try to attack other young girls. I don't know why they're getting shit for it. So maybe we should all take the step back like we do here at the LPDS and look at all sides of the argument here before we start pointing fingers and calling out hard-working journalists for just doing their jobs. That's all they were doing, just doing their jobs. Okay? That's what news is these days. Okay? You lie to some poor sap. You do a baseless hit piece on them and drag them and their families through the dirt, through the mud, sometimes ruining their careers and their livelihoods. And you make a couple bucks off of it, and people read it, and they talk about it on podcasts that nobody else listens to while they're sitting in their parents' dungeon basement. That's what happens. That's news. That's the newspaper industry. That's how it's done, folks. And we need to, again, realize they're just doing their jobs. Before we start throwing jabs, let's just take the step. Take a deep breath, think about it objectively, and realize what's going on here. In all seriousness, though, what is happening to our news? That we have to have reputable, centuries-old newspapers that are read nationwide. The New York Times used to have a reputation as one of the top news sources for objective, investigative journalism. You got the news objectively, and then they broke stories where their journalists dug deep, got actual information on something important, and presented it in a way that provided us with actual information and a good update and brought light to something that otherwise wasn't brought to light previously. Now, the New York Times is in the spotlight for attacking a kid, lying to a kid. She's a kid, okay? She might be in college, but she can't even rent a car yet without having to get her parents to sign off for her. And they're lying to a kid to squeeze information, to put her in a vulnerable spot, to get information, to make her think she's safe and secure, being open with these people, just for them to attack her by hiding behind a screen and a keyboard and attacking the shit out of her and try to make her feel bad and ruin her livelihood for taking advantage of a system that they helped put in place. That's something they won't tell you, folks. The New York Times had several articles back in the day campaigning on behalf of the student athletes who they felt were getting screwed because they were the ones putting asses in seats to watch their games, and the NCAA and the colleges and the administrators were the only ones profiting off of it. Millions and millions and millions of dollars, and all these students were getting was a scholarship, which is not, nothing, to turn your nose at, but compared to what these other folks are getting, the student athletes are the ones doing all the work. And they got a scholarship out of it. That's great. They get out of college, they don't have any debt, but now they have nothing to do. They, most of them are not making the pro level. Tell me where the pro gymnasts go work out at and how much money they make a year. I don't even know any pro gymnasts except for the Olympians, and nobody's watching their shit outside of the Olympics except other gymnasts. So that's what, 600 people in this country are watching gymnastics all year round. I'm sure that helps provide salaries for all the pro gymnasts. So this is an opportunity for them to actually make a living and secure their future financially after college when they inevitably don't make the pro level. And that's exactly what this girl did. Okay? She's just taking advantage of a process that was put in place by people, not her, and she's following it by the book, and she's doing awesome at it. And then people have to drag her name through the dirt because I don't know why. They're haters gonna hate, I guess. Jealous, bitter, angry, pissed they didn't think of that themselves, mad because she's making $2 million on it. They're trying to shit talk her, say she's not even a good gymnast anyway. She's just hot. So that's how she's profiting. First of all, you don't know that. I guarantee you, most of you don't watch gymnastics, so you don't freaking know if she's good or not. Second of all, so what? If I was hot, you better believe I'm shaking my ass in front of every single camera I see to rack up the money. If I could find a way to get paid just to exist, I'm going to do it. Why wouldn't you? Why are you trying to make someone feel bad for doing something that you just wish you could do? Whether it's gymnastics or being good at a sport or just being damn hot and found the vector to get paid to be hot. And I'm not saying she's only doing it because she's hot. Actually, I think she's a good gymnast because I have friends who are actual gymnasts, prior Olympians, and know that she's decent. Why are we dogging on this person? Why is an otherwise reputable newspaper creating a headline story on this? And essentially verbally abusing this person and lying about it just for the clickbait. Just so they can get some short-term profits out of it. Not even caring this is a human being. This is a kid who's got to deal with the backlash. Millions of people are now talking about it, probably shit-talking her directly, going to her school at LSU and probably dogging on them, asking for her to quit and this and that, all this crap. And then you find some old bitch coach, some old hag who's mad about it. This is a step back. How is this a step back? Because it's a successful girl succeeding at something that you put in place? How come no one's giving shit to any of the dudes in the NCAA who are making millions on NIL? Why is it only chicks? Could it be you're just mad because you're not good at gymnastics or your sport anymore because you're an old hag and your titties are sagging down into your oatmeal and nobody wants to see that shit and pay you for NIL? Maybe that could be it. So you decide to attack some poor kid instead of just taking ownership of it? And that's the lesson here, folks. In case you missed it, before we start throwing spears at people who are succeeding and you just don't like the way they're doing it, take a look inside before you start making stupid comments or writing full news articles on it. Take that look inside and think about why you're feeling that way and where the logic and the feelings separate there. Because logically speaking, this should not affect any one of us at all. This is a person who's not breaking the law. They're not cheating the system. They're not corrupting anything. They're not corrupt by anything. There is a legal opportunity for them to make money off of their name and likeness, and they're doing it. And they're doing it really well. And logically speaking, that should not affect anybody. That should not affect the New York Times. That should not affect that old bitch-ass coach. That should not affect anybody who's dogging on her in social media. So ask yourself why that is. Why do you feel so charged up about this person? Because we're told to? Because that's what the New York Times told you to do? And this coach told you to do? To be pissed about it? This is what happens, folks. It happens with politics. It happens with sports now. People with a platform tell you how to think, tell you what to think, and you just sit there and do it blindly with no regard to the effects of the people you're doing it against. Now, Olivia Dunne has responded more than appropriately, and she's definitely winning this in more ways than one. She's winning it because at the end of the day, she's still making $2 million on NIL. NIL, how you doing? And her response is clearly it's not, she didn't let this get to her. I hope behind the scenes she's still doing okay and she's not just hiding, her true feelings. I hope she's not really hurt by this at all, because she shouldn't be. She doesn't deserve that. But this is what happens. Meanwhile, we have actual criminals running our country that we just voted for. How come we have no problem with that? Because that's what the media told us to not have a problem with. Don't care about that. Have a problem with this poor girl who's just trying to go to college and take advantage of a system she didn't put in place. Somebody else did for her. So, moral of the story, before you get up in arms because some newspaper or media source is blindly telling you to get up in arms about something, take the step back, ask yourself why, gather all the information, make an informed assessment and opinion on that information, and move on with your lives. Control the controllables, folks. Okay? No matter what happens, somebody else is going to be dragged in the mud for doing nothing wrong other than just existing in their environment. And it's going to create a stir once again. And you're going to be able to, revert back to this episode and be like, I already know how to handle this. I'm just not going to give a shit. I'm not going to give this person shit. I'm not going to let it affect me and my life. I'm gonna just let this person continue to exist and do what they gotta do, because this is nonsense. Okay? We have to stop getting controlled by the nonsense of anything. Sports stories, sports drama, high school drama, politics, family shit. Control the controllables. Don't let them control you. Okay? Leave the poor girl alone. I can't believe a newspaper, which is supposed to be, again, a reputable, historically relevant newspaper. It was, it's the New York Times. This is what they're writing now. How come nobody has a problem with that? They should be ashamed of this. That's embarrassing that this is their biggest news story of the last however many months, is that they had to go and take shots at a college kid. That's embarrassing. New York Times, shame. I mean, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. That's embarrassing. And of course, they're sitting there thinking like, we really got a good story here. We got her, guys. We nabbed her. Unbelievable. But that's all I got. Leave her the girl alone. She's a human being. That's all I got for now. Before I go, though, the big three. And this kind of goes into the big three. Of course it does, folks. Because we know what the big three is. It's the three pillars of the LPDS to staying strong and being a better, happier person in life. And a more good person. That's not a real thing, more good, but it is now. Okay, number one, exercise every day. Burn off the energy. If you get all hot and bothered by a stupid story that someone is telling you is real news, go run it off, go work it out, and then come back and you'll feel better. You'll be healthier physically, mentally, emotionally. Number two, what we're just talking about, don't be a shitty person. It's the hardest thing to do. Obviously, the easiest thing to do is to see somebody out there and about doing something with their lives and then taking jabs at them and not giving no regard to how it's going to affect them and their families in the future. That's the easiest thing to do. The hardest thing is to just not be that shitty person, to be the good person. Instead of taking the time to interview people and write a story to make this girl out to be a piece of garbage, just don't do that. I don't know if you can hear Randy in the background. He agrees too. It's loud up there now. Hopefully it doesn't take over the podcast here. But take the step back. When you have the feeling and the emotion and the urge to take a jab at someone and be a shitty person, take 1 second to pause on that action and think about why you're doing that, what that's going to do, what positivity is that going to bring to the world if you do that. Because 99 times out of 100, no positivity is going to come. You're just doubling the negative. You're just increasing the negative out there, and that's what we're trying to not to do. Okay? So take that step back. Don't be that shitty person. Number three, the most important one, and as we're approaching Thanksgiving, everyone's going to start talking about it again now, but we here at the LPDS talk about it all the time because it's the most important thing, to be genuinely thankful and grateful for all the good you have in your lives. While you take that step back about not being a shitty person, take an extra second to think about all the good you have in your life and be thankful and grateful for it. Even if it's just one thing. Think about one thing a day that you're thankful for, that's good in your life, and actively say, I'm thankful. This is really cool that I have this in my life still. It's a simple way to do it. You follow the three, you follow the big three. I promise you, you do those things every day, little by little, every day, you're going to be a better, happier, more positive human being, and you're going to spread that goodness throughout. Okay? That's it. Now I'm done. Thank you guys again. Don't forget to hit the hotline, 202-670-1114. Ask your questions, give advice. I got some topics I got from previous hotline questions. We're going to make them into episodes very soon here, so stand by for that. But whatever you got, hit the hotline, hit the comments, hit the DMs on Instagram, LPD_show. Go on the YouTubes and like and subscribe and do all that stuff to spread the good word, because the more you guys get involved, the better content I can put out for you guys, okay? Thank you guys again. I love you all. Stay strong.